Welcome to the Product Podcast, where we dive deep into the real world challenges and victories of product managers, startup founders, and product teams. I'm your host, Lee Jean, and in each episode, we have authentic conversations that uncover the hidden stories shaping modern product management. All right, Noah, thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
the Product Podcast. How are we doing today?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, yes. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, actually, Noah is my co-founder. We actually, started a company together, and we're currently building a product for product managers, hence why we are starting this podcast.
Mhm.
So, yeah, Noah, I wanted to start off by actually having you, from your perspective, talk about, your journey from, before joining this company till now. Yeah.
All right. So it hasn't been very long since I graduated from college. I'd say about a year now. I went to school for informatics, which is kind of like computer science, a lot of coding, but it also involves a lot of the part where like people interact with interfaces and computers and software. So it was kind of like human psychology combined with coding. But anyway, after I graduated from college, I wanted to make like a personal project or something to put on my resume. And while I was working on that, I really enjoyed that process and I liked it a lot. And then I liked my product and I wanted to see something become of it. Um, and but I wasn't great at all the other parts of doing business, all the other parts of being a startup founder. It wasn't all just, you make a software SaaS product like you would do if somebody hires you to do that. Um, but there were all these other things that I wasn't aware of. And I wanted to like learn more about what all there was. But at the same time, like there was only so much time that I had and I couldn't do everything that there was. So I wanted to kind of find some more people to, I guess, collaborate with and share our strengths and weaknesses. And that's where I met Lee at a networking event, where I wanted to find some people to work together with on my product or potentially other products. And then that's what brought us here working at Lynqt together.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that project, man. I that's what really drew me to want to work with you. Tell them a little bit about that.
So it was kind of like ChatGPT combined with PowerPoint. Um, It had two panes similar to our current product, but you had your slides on the left side and like a chat interface on the right. And I'm sure a lot of other people have thought of this idea too, but one of my friends while in college, it wasn't actually my idea, it was my friend's idea. And he was saying, and this was around when ChatGPT first kind of blew up, and I'd say like December of 2022, maybe? Yeah, 2022, when everyone was talking about this new thing called ChatGPT, and we were kind of messing around on the API, making some things, and he said that why don't we make like a thing that generates PowerPoints using ChatGPT? And so I made like a prototype of it and showed it to him, and it was very, very simple. It was like a CLI command interface where you just type in the terminal and then you kind of tell it what kind of presentation you want, and then it spat out like a PowerPoint file with all the slides and the content. And there was like a crappy image generated by Dolly in there, like Dolly version 2. It looked horrible, but it was a concept. And I think nowadays, if you go on the ChatGPT website, you can actually do this just on there. You can say make a PowerPoint and download it, and it gives you a file and everything. But that was kind of the seed for this idea. And then, so after I graduated, I wanted to do a personal project, and I thought that I would make that my personal project. And in the beginning, it was kind of okay. It was like a sequential flow where first you make the topic, and then you get the outline and then you get the slides. But I just kept noticing that the quality of the content in the slides was really crappy, just kind of like blabbering on, kind of what you got with GPT 3.5 Turbo, um, with just simple kind of prompts, right? And so I wanted to increase the quality of the content, and I made a ton of other improvements as well. But the biggest thing was I wanted to increase the quality of the information. And so in order to do that, I created like a researching pipeline where it connected to the Brave Search API, which is kind of like Google Search API, to get some content on the internet and then use that content, aggregate it, and eventually create these slides. But during that process, I learned a ton about stuff like RAG, about how interfacing with the APIs, lots of prompt engineering stuff, and what I expected to spend maybe about a month on the product, I spent like 6 months just trying to make it better and better and better. And I never realized when it was time to like stop working on this and launch it or get customers or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think we connected on the fact that you were building a product that would honestly save me like tons of time. But one of the things that you had mentioned to me when we first met was like you had no idea who to sell it to, right? I was
Hmm.
obviously a former teacher and, somebody who, makes PowerPoints almost every day. So it made sense to me. But I guess what kind of lessons did you learn from that experience? Obviously not knowing who to sell it to.
Right. So I think what I did was fine for the purposes of doing a project and learning from it and like exploring what is out there that you can use and new technologies to learn and stuff. But I guess the thing was, it wasn't always my goal in the beginning to create something to sell to people. And that's kind of how it got driven in that direction. But towards the end, I realized, well, I want to make more of this, but it was a little too late for that product, maybe even because the goals and like the perspective that I had in mind when I was making it wasn't to create something that somebody would buy, but to create something that just looks cool on my resume or that I can show people or and I wouldn't even have used this product on my own, which is the sad thing. Um, because I didn't make any PowerPoints and research-based PowerPoints and at that point in time. And um yeah, so it was very strange like what kind of motivation I had to make it that way. It was just kind of I guess from like a developer's perspective, what would be a cool, clean way to do things?
Yeah, it's very interesting. A lot of founders fall into this trap, right? Where they build a product that they think is a really good idea, right? Especially developers. But then, yeah, like when it comes time to sell it, it's very hard because you haven't learned how to do that, right? And
Right.
like the first approach. So that's when I knew I could help. I could help in the sense of I've been down that road where I've built a product that I didn't actually, sell first, and I wanted to see if I could help you, and that's how we joined the Antler Accelerator program.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, can you tell us a little bit about how we kind of came up with the idea that we're going? Obviously, I know, right? But like, how did we come to this idea? Yeah.
Right. So we went through many different ideas. I think in the really beginning, we wanted to continue with the PowerPoint generator that I was working on, but we kept kind of changing things with it. I think the first thing we did was we changed the focus so that it's marketed to startup founders, people who need to make pitch decks. And the reasoning that we had for that was because that's like ourselves, and it was easier for us to relate with the potential customer. And yeah, and then Lee has experience with doing these kind of startup accelerator stuff and pitching and all this. So we thought that that would be a good kind of fit for us. But then we threw that idea out the window maybe about 2 weeks after we came up with it because it just didn't seem very profitable. Startup founders are not rich and they're kind of busy and they don't have much time. And maybe our product could have helped them save some time. But also the other issue with our this idea was like if they buy the product and they create a pitch deck, then that's it, right? They
Yeah,
won't come back and keep paying us.
exactly.
And so we went back to the drawing board at that point and we created a document with like 15 different random ideas that we had. And I think we were just like crossing them off the list, trying to pick the best one. And then I think the one that we landed on was it was called like AI powered word processor, I think. That's what
Mm-hmm.
we called it in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then but it still took us a while to get to
Yeah.
the actual product from like the point where we decided we're making an AI powered word processor because there's a lot of stuff that a word processor does. Like our product doesn't really do it. Um, like when it comes to like the printing stuff, the templates and
Right.
because people, when you say word processor, you could think of like Microsoft Word, which is not what we're building. But I guess the whole process was like, well, what is our product going to be? Like, what is it going to be like? And who's going to use it? All this stuff. And I think when we talked to the developer that was in the Antler program, I don't remember his name, but when we talked to him, I think we just kind of came on the idea that developers use Cursor. It's like a big thing, right? Everybody
Yeah.
knows about Cursor now.
Mhm.
But it lets you edit multiple documents at a time using the chat bot or the chat interface. And now it does like agentic stuff where it goes and changes your code for you. But um, Cursor is kind of like what you would call the ChatGPT wrapper, but it was like just a great version of it, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, so it is the ChatGPT wrapper, but it does a lot more, right? It provides lots of value. So we thought that maybe we can make something similar for a word processor for people who write documents where our
Right.
AI kind of does the process of going in the right files and changing the right part of the files in the right way,
Yeah.
just like Cursor does.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I really wanted the goal of like taking on Microsoft Word and like Google Sheets and stuff, but like, yeah, sometimes we have to be brought back down to earth. And I think that we kind of just organically came up with like product managers as being our customer because
Mhm.
they deal with so many different teams and like so many different documents in their day to day, right? Uh,
Right.
how do you feel about us building this product for product managers and I guess this customer base?
I think at first we talked about doing it for business analysts. I think
Mm,
it was like a 3-day period where we were saying we're going to have it for business analysts.
right, right. That's right.
Um, but I think we decided to do product managers because they're more like in the center of
Yep.
the
Hmm.
information, and they were like that person that people go to in a product team where they ask the questions, right? Like, how should I do this? How should I do that? How does this need to be? It seems like the product manager is the person who gets caught in the middle.
Hmm.
So we thought that if we can just maybe not like replace them, but maybe divert some of the traffic away from the product manager into our potential app, so that they can get the information directly from the documentation in a just as easy method as going on Slack and paying the product manager.
Yeah.
Then we can save the product manager time and also the whoever's talking to them. Um, so that's kind of how we landed on that. I think it is a good niche of people that work with documentation a lot, and who are open to using AI tools,
Mhm.
open to innovating. Um, and then they also have a lot of issues that they deal with, I think.
Right. Hmm.
And they're not the kind of person that I already have my flow and I like it. I have a million different spreadsheets, templates, and this is how I do it every time, and I don't want to change it. That didn't
Right.
seem to be like the kind of people that we were talking to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that we're on the right track in terms of like the customer to solve. We just need to figure out what type of problem to solve, I think. And I really have enjoyed the process of learning, right? Because
Hmm.
entrepreneurship is that. It's like learning. We have to learn every single day and go through these ups and downs. I want to actually go back to the beginning of your journey. You said that graduated university recently. Uh,
Hmm.
but what I also attracted me to, partnering up with you is the fact that you've never worked for a company before, right?
Hmm.
And you've never actually had that experience of being in a bigger team and stuff like that. You always were just kind of like, oh, I want to do my own thing. What kind
Hmm.
of led you to that realization that you don't want to work for a company and stuff?
Um, well, so I graduated kind of later than the people that I grew up with. I did a gap year in Japan, and that was cool. But what ended up happening was that wasn't the only reason, but I ended up graduating maybe like 6 months to a year before everybody that I went to high school with and some of the people that I spent a lot of time in college with. So I got to see like what their experience was going and getting a job, like a regular job. Um, And it seemed like, I mean, some of them had a great time, others didn't, but it just didn't seem like they were being the most productive.
Mm.
And a lot of the times just because, I don't know, their boss was making them do like unproductive stuff because the boss, it was better for them, or also the boss didn't want to do anything. Or it was like the other way around where the boss is just like kind of on them all the time, like on their ass, and then but still whatever they're making is like not leading to productivity for the company.
Right.
But they say that like you shouldn't knock it until you try it, right? And I don't have that much experience. It's just from just people telling me stuff.
Hmm.
But something about it told me that like maybe there's a different way. Maybe like I could be more productive
Yeah.
if I kind of directed myself in what I thought would be the best way would be to spend my time.
Mm.
And then I I guess I was in like a lucky position where I got away with it. I mean, like some people they have no choice, right? They have to go get a job
Right.
because they have to pay the bills. So I was in like a lucky position where I got to make the choice. So I thought, why not? Like, why not just do it? And this kind of realized while I was working on that app, like for 6 months, and that also kind of proved to me that I could make something, without somebody telling me what to do or without having an employed job or without like learning from others that are in a team. Um, it kind of proved to me that I can learn something on my own as well. And I mean, I still learn a lot as a startup founder from others all the time. But yeah, I guess what I realized was that it's not the only way to do it to go to a company and get a job and stuff like that. So I want to make that work for me.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
it's been going, I think, pretty good so far.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to get into next is like, how's it going, right? Do you regret your decision or, oh, sorry, and what types of things have you learned throughout this journey of entrepreneurship that you probably wouldn't have learned, working for some company and some tech team?
That's a good question. From like a technical standpoint, I definitely think I learned a lot more about just like a little bit of everything. And if you work in a startup as an employee, you do a similar kind of thing,
Right.
where some task needs to be completed and you need to go out and figure out the solution.
Hmm.
And it's not always going to be the cleanest solution, but the point is like you make the value, right? You complete the task and you create whatever value for the product. But I think if you worked, and I can't say from experience, but I think if you worked for like a big corporation, just like fixing one cog in a big machine, you wouldn't get that kind of experience going and looking and kind of that looking for what's available and picking the right thing or picking something doesn't have to be the best thing.
Hmm.
And then just kind of slapping it together and making something work. Um, and I'm sure there's value in making like great software, like all clean and everything, all sorts of test suites, and doing it in the right process. But that just wasn't fit for me, I think. I like having variety in my day-to-day life. I don't want to be doing the same thing or across, months and yeah, months and even weeks. Like I like to do something completely different between one day and the next. Um, so that's why I like it. Yeah, I like doing this. And there's not very much direction in our startup, I guess. We go all over the place. First, we were talking about making PowerPoints, and then like yeah, we have some direction, but it's very, very like dynamic, and I think that's fit for some people and not for others. I don't really mind it so much, like changing direction a lot. Where
Hmm.
I know we're in the talks of doing more interviews to figure out if there's an even better problem that we can solve.
Hmm.
And if we decide to go down that road, then a lot of the stuff that we've been kind of projecting that we'll be working on in the future, like would be thrown up. But I think that's fine. Like I don't mind it.
So, question for you with regards to throwing out things that you built, right?
Yeah,
As a
yeah,
as a developer, how does that
right.
make you feel? And I guess how are you able to put that whatever pride or something like that to the side in order for a bigger goal? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's not that bad for me. Sometimes it's kind of like a relieving feeling that I don't
Mm.
need to deal with like all the projecting stuff, because when I'm working on something You know, I keep thinking, okay, this I'm gonna have to come back and fix because it's messy and there's a lot of that, you know, some bug that's like, okay, well, I can't fix this now, but I'll fix it later.
Right.
And there's like all that stuff that piles up. And then we're like, okay, we're not making this anymore. We're gonna make something new. It's kind of a good feeling because I don't have to deal with all that stuff that I, you know, uh, backlogged.
Right.
And then I can start something new. So I don't think it's that bad for me, but I do understand like a little bit, like, yeah, you've been working on this thing and you've been curating it and improving it. And, you know, now like that's it. It's gone, you know, in
Right.
the dump. So I maybe like it's one way to avoid that is if you're not so like perfectionist about
Mm.
making that product. Um, yeah, I think. It
Okay.
helps a lot. But yeah, it's like hard to have that perspective because when you're doing a startup, you don't want to think like, okay, we're going to do this for 4 months and then we're going to throw it out. So we're just going to slap it together and whatever, because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It's going to be gone in 4 months. That's not how you think. You think that it's going to like take off and 3 years down the road, it's going to be some huge company and whatever groundwork you laid is going to like drive how it's going to be working in that big company.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I guess you have to find a balance between um, it might be the best thing someday, and then we might just throw it out next month.
Yeah. So with regards to entrepreneurship, man, what's the dream? What is your dream, for, the end goal?
That's a good question. I don't really like try to project too far out in the future for myself. End goal. Yeah, I don't think that there would ever be an end, right? Maybe if I get old and tired, but I feel like I would just keep wanting more and more and more, no matter how good it's going or bad it's going.
Human
So that's
nature.
a yeah,
Yes.
that's a tough question. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Well, then what advice would you give somebody in your shoes? They're just graduating
hmm
university and they don't know whether to get into
hmm
entrepreneurship or to go to a stable job and company. I guess, would you advise to take the same route or would you advise the safe route that everyone else takes?
That's a very difficult question. I can't really answer it fully without knowing what it would be like to work in a company and go the safe route. I think it was just like you have to pick something, right? And you pick something, and then whatever you end up picking, you kind of would just be biased to think that that was the right way to go. And I feel like this goes for lots of those like big career decisions or like life decisions. You have to pick something, and you're never gonna know like whether which way is better or the other. And after you pick it, you're still not gonna know like if that was the best way to go.
Mm,
Um, but I guess you could still switch back and forth, right? Like if you're really not liking it, and I haven't found that. Maybe if I went like the career way and I got some job and maybe I would have really not liked it and I would have switched to entrepreneurship there. Or maybe it would have been great for me and I would have just tried to climb the corporate ladder for the rest of my life. But
right.
I don't know. I just can't say until I've tried it. But I don't know, just go with your gut, I guess.
Uh, okay,
Yeah.
that's a good advice. I mean, as somebody who has done both, I can tell you
Okay.
one regret that I have had in life
Right.
is actually going down the corporate route because,
Right.
especially when you're young. When you're young, you have all the time in the world. You know what I mean? Um, what you get from figuring it out as you are going through the struggle, you'll never get in a corporate environment, and
hmm
I'm the type of person who, if I'm not enjoying a position, I will stay there for a year, learn what I can, and then find something else, and find something else, and find something else. Whereas in entrepreneurship, that learning process gets rapid, man. It's like every single day we're learning something new along this journey, and I
hmm
think that we need more entrepreneurs. We need more people building, innovative products, right from university, because that's when they're fresh. They don't have any bad habits. Right? There's
Right.
there's no
Right.
bad habits, there's no expectations of what a company should look like. You get to build, Obviously, yes, you do need to learn skills, right?
Yeah.
I think that people should be, I guess, a little bit more open in that sense. And that's what really attracted me, obviously, to partner up with you. And that's, why we're together still, because I think you're very, I guess, you don't have those bad habits that some other developer might have. You're just like
hmm
optimistically, yeah, let's try it. Let's do this. Let's do that, which is crucial for a startup,
hmm
you know?
hmm
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, that's a good thing, man. I'm telling you. Hopefully we can continue on our route, you know?
Yeah, I
Speaking of
agree.
let's speak about the future a little bit. You know, obviously we're building a tool for product managers, right? But
Hmm.
technology's constantly changing. How do you view the future of product management software?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. A lot of people think or say that 5 years down the road, like we'll have agents that communicate within like with each other and create a network, and you'll have your agent communicating with some other agent somewhere else, and maybe everybody would have their own agents to serve them different purposes. Um, I don't think it'll be like that maybe someday, but I feel like it's still kind of farther out there. And I still feel like the autonomy would be left to the humans still.
Okay.
Um, I think a lot of people would kind of push back against having AI in charge of something.
Okay.
Um, I feel like people are resistant towards that, and they're more like, I want to have a person in charge of something and take the responsibility. But if they want to improve their productivity with AI, then that's great. But the person should still be in charge of whatever happens because, especially in like corporate structures, like responsibility is a big thing, right? Like so and so messed up, so they need to take the responsibility, or they try to avoid it. This is the thing that we see in Japan a lot. Like uh, people kind of try to worry too much about being responsible about messing up, and like they're all doing that, so nobody like stands up and does what needs to be done.
Mhm.
um but anyway, so I think that there would be kind of resistance against like the complete AI autonomy, but I don't know, maybe not. And instead of like complete automation, there would be um, more like helping the users, helping the people get their work done faster. And then maybe just like that, it'll go up like higher and higher, like how autonomous it is. Like first, it'll start out with just being very kind of small improvements to the workflow, like how GitHub Copilot was before, where you're writing code and it does like the autocomplete.
Mhm.
And then now when Cursor first came out, it was like you can use the chat interface and then apply the stuff that it generates into your code, but it's still very manual. And
Mhm.
now it's like agent mode, right, where you tell it to do stuff, and it's not great at doing what it's just told if you just tell it to make something. But um, if the developer tells the AI like exactly how to do it, where to put what and stuff, like it's better. But what I'm trying to say is like the level of autonomy goes up, and then maybe, we'll get to somewhere where um, it's like left up to the AI to do
Mm.
things. But I think that's still kind of far out there, and there's going to be
Right.
resistance. Not only would it be technically difficult to manage that, but I think there would be like kind of human element resistance to that as well. But maybe, yeah, I don't know. I can't see the future.
I definitely see, agents being more prevalent, and maybe we have like agent managers, right? Where you're like
Right.
managing all the agents and how they're interworking together. But at the end of the day, big decisions really need to be done by humans. And I don't think, we're going to be completely eradicated, right? With regards
Hmm.
to especially building software, which is good.
Right.
I'm excited about the future, and I'm excited to have you on the team to help build the product that we're going to be building for product managers. How have the insights that we've been getting been informing a lot of the decisions that we've been making in your mind?
Um, well, when we try to come up with the features, we, yeah, try to make features that are at least related to what we hear from customers and customer interviews. We haven't gotten to beta testing yet. We're very close to that. But as we do that and as we launch and we have public customers, yeah, we should definitely keep hearing from them about what would really help them the most. And we've been kind of working with percentages a lot, like asking them to divide up their day, like what percent of the day do you spend at work, in meetings, and what percent updating PRDs, writing documents, that stuff. And we try to like block it out and then try to pick the biggest groups to make a tool for.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's kind of a strategy that we've been doing. Um, yeah, I mean, there's only so much we can do.
Yep.
And then whenever we do these interviews, like it's always a great favor that they're doing us because we're not really giving them anything in return and they're just helping us out, right? Like telling us what they're looking for.
Absolutely.
But it's a very important process, I think, and it's a hell of a lot better than like me making my PowerPoint app just based on what I want to make. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
The customer is, pain points of what we need to go off of, not what we
Hmm.
honestly think. And yeah, I
Hmm.
guess we still have a lot to learn, but this is what this podcast is for. This is what all of our interviews that we're doing are for. And I think we're all as a team learning a lot from this, which is great. All right.
Hmm.
So, to wrap up the podcast,
Hmm.
a question was left to you by the previous
Hmm.
guest. And then
Right.
what I'll do, once you answer that question, I'll have you ask a question
Hmm.
to the next guest. Okay?
Okay.
So, apart from your work and apart
Hmm.
from your family relationships and apart from entertainment, what is one thing that makes you happy?
Um, hmm. I like connecting with people. Maybe that was excluded. I don't know. But yeah, I do like, yeah, finding somebody that I have agreements with or think the same way about things, or even if there's disagreements, if there's like some element of agreement in the disagreement, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I think when I was working on that app by myself, I was just kind of like isolated, I guess. And I go through phases like of being more introverted than extroverted and stuff. But since we've been working on this startup together, I've been doing a lot more of like we go to networking events together and stuff. And I've been doing a lot more of like talking with people that I don't know too well.
Mhm.
And it's a fun thing for me. So yeah, that's one example.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great to hear.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a question that you would like to ask the next person,
Hmm.
please tell us now.
But the question is like, how do you find a balance between pushing early, like pushing fast so you can get to market and get validation as soon as possible, and then actually like spending the time and resources to create a good product, right? Like a quality product that people would like and want to buy. Like how do you find or how should somebody find that balance or what do you think of that balance? Something like that.
Awesome. That's a great question, man. Very relevant for this podcast, man.
Yeah.
Well, Noah, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Obviously, it's a pleasure having you as a co-founder on the team. How can the listeners connect with you?
Um, Maybe we can just put my LinkedIn on here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that
So
would be the
LinkedIn would be
best
the
way.
best. And
Yeah.
and in terms of our product, what do you want them to know about our product?
Um, what do we want? We're gonna be doing beta testing soon, and then we'll be launching soon. Anybody who's interested in editing documents quicker, yeah, we'd like to hear from you. And even if it's not exactly what we built so far, but if there's something that people think like, oh, this is what I need right now, but I just don't have the time to build it, or I don't want to be the person to build it, or whatever. We're open to hearing suggestions. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can check us out at lynqt.com. So lynqt.com. So thank you so much, Noah. And
My
looking
pleasure.
forward
Thanks
to
for
the
having me.
next one. Yep. Take care. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Product Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want to share your PM stories, challenges, struggles, or insights with us on a future episode, please get in touch with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to have you on and keep this conversation going. Until next time, happy building, everyone.